Hey everybody, this is Kyle Bobbitt, owner of Kyle Bobbitt LLC, and today we're going to be talking about what is a general contractor. I'm going to really try to break it down kind of from a high level overview perspective. There's obviously several factors to it, but we're going to pretty much just get right into it. Thanks. All right, so we're going to talk about what does a general contractor do. You can pause it, screenshot it, do whatever you want to do, but this is just a real high level version. A general contractor is responsible for seeing a construction project through from beginning to end. Essentially, a general contractor acts as a go-between between the property's owner and everyone who brings the building to life, including materials, suppliers, vendors, and tradespeople. This is a pretty easy thing to understand, but essentially, if you want to build a home or do a commercial project or you're working with the state or whatever you're doing, and you're a client and you don't really understand construction, right? You hire a general contractor. There's several ways in terms of paying them, which we'll get into later. But essentially, they're your in between, so you don't have to talk, to the 100 people that's involved in actually making it happen. You're just talking to one person. It's your main point of contact, and I can't really stress enough how important it is to pick a general contractor that best fits your needs and your project. And by saying that, a lot of times you want to pick a general contractor that essentially has the personality you're looking for, or is the type of person you're looking for. The best analogy I give people is when you're doing a project together, like building a custom home or whatever your project is. It's almost like a temporary marriage, right? Like that's the best analogy I can give. You're going to love it. You're going to hate it. You're going to have ups. You're going to have downs, just like in any marriage. But at the end of the day, you got to stick it through all the way to the end. That's just my take on it. I really take a personal approach with my clients. Every client that I have, I know on a personal level. I talk to, daily or semi-daily basis. We go over so many factors of it. And it's really important. Like, this is your next big step. Like, if you have in your mind, I want to do this or I want to build that, your next big step is going, who is the general contractor for me, right? So we're going to move on. The general contractor's responsibilities usually depends on the delivery method in the project. Example, in design build, either the architect or the GC manages the entire project from start to finish. This means the GC may be responsible for managing both the design and construction of the project. Now, here at Kyle Bobbitt LLC, that's exactly what we do. We have in-house architects, engineers, and we basically like to take it from the ground up. Now, I'm not saying that we won't take your project if you already have a set of plans or you already have gotten, blueprints online or whatever that case may be. But essentially, when you run both the design and the construction, you typically have a lot better feel of what the project is, what it's going to cost. It's really the best method, in my opinion. For a design build project, a design team and GC both report to the owner under separate contracts. The design team develops the documents, drawings, specifications, and others. Once completed, the designers are sent out to GCs to provide a bid on the project and then see the project through to completion. The GC has important responsibilities before, during, and after the actual construction process that helps with getting the project completed. Now, a design bid build project is a little more complicated. It's a lot more paperwork. Typically, the architect is kind of in the driver's seat on this one from the beginning. And they're basically sending this job out to multiple general contractors and saying, hey, look, here's all the documents. You work with your team, put the best price you can on the project, and we're going to go from there. So in this scenario, it's typically for a lot bigger projects, like, not even informal or light renovations or upfits in the commercial world. It's usually for, schools, hospitals, anything that probably exceeds, $2 million or more in the state side of things. You want to kind of see this design bid build project design team. And that works really good because essentially you don't need a general contractor during that portion of the process because there's so much involved in the design phase. And I'll talk about that in another video. But people who don't know anything about construction very, very, very highly underestimate how much design work goes into a construction project. They have no idea, uh, you know, every single piece to the puzzle, how long it takes to put together, all the communication it takes. Is it structurally sound? Is it mechanically, HVAC, plumbing, MEP engineers, design engineers, architects? There's so many people involved in a big project, in a design part of the project. It gets really complicated, and not that should scare you away, but just know the design can take some time. I've been a part of design teams that could take 2 years just to get the design done before you even get a price to build it. Now, with that being said, obviously, every day life gets more and more expensive. The longer the design team takes, essentially, the more it's going to cost you in the end. Because what it costs to build a building in 2020 is not what it costs in 2022, so on and so on and so on. So, a lot of people try to push the design. I'm not saying you should hurry the design because it's really the most important part, right? You want to make sure your structure is sound, but it can get out of hand relatively quickly with all of the kind of the red tape involved between so many different firms and their response time. So it's really good to put together a real strong design team as well if you're kind of going that route. The simplest way for a home is just a simple design build. So that's an overview of what does a general contractor do. All right, we're going to jump right into pre-construction. Now, before construction begins in the construction world, we call it pre-construction. It's the pre-construction phase. And this is just kind of a really high-level overview. It does not really give full respect to how long this process can be. It can be extremely time-consuming, extremely difficult. And essentially, when you're hiring a general contractor based on whatever the payment terms are, they may have a set fee for this depending on the type of project. You may be doing it on a cost plus basis where this may be built into the fee. The cost plus percentage of the fee, which is what I typically do, is cost plus construction. It could be a number of things. You may do a set fee for pre-construction and then the fee just on the build, or you may increase that percentage overall on the entire project if the pre-construction phase is going to be difficult. And typically a good general contractor that's got years under his belt can kind of gauge this just based on the project, right? If it's a new home or if it's a new building, if it's 2,000 square feet or 100,000 square feet, that pre-construction phase can just vary greatly, and it's all project specific. So the general contractor may be responsible for some or all of the following: developing a construction budget. I could make a whole video on what it takes to develop a construction budget. Now, that's not what we're going to do today. I certainly will do that if someone shows interest, and I'll take the time to explain it. From a high level perspective, this is kind of beginning to end, putting all the pieces together of what the general contractor thinks is a good budget to complete the project. At this point, he already has his plans. He has his, zoning plans, site plans, soil maps, septic and well, if that's involved, the environmental, the survey's done, all the due diligences are done, kind of the driveway, exterior lighting, interior lighting. I mean, the plans are basically done, soup to nuts. And essentially, you're trying to say, okay, this is what we love. How much is it going to cost? So, there's 4 words there that really make it sound simple, but it can take a long time to pull all that information together to create a budget. Moving on, hiring subcontractors to complete specialized tasks. Now, I kind of broke this out because the way I like to do it, I've been in the construction world for 20 years, and I typically still like to send it to 3 different guys from each trade. So if I want to know how much the plumbing is going to cost on a project, I send it to 3 plumbers that I trust and know, that I've built relationships with. Now, I like all of these guys, but at the same time, the budget's a big part of it. And there, everybody thinks there's some kind of standardized price. Well, it's a standardized price based upon supply and demand. So, for example, if I have two plumbers and one of them gives me a better price, but he can't get to it for a year, and another guy gives me a lot higher price, and essentially, let's say he's, oh, I'm booked for 2 months or 3 months. So the timeline can really play a factor into that decision. Like you may have one plumber that is the cheapest price, but he can't get to it for a long time. He can't get to it when you need the work done. So you may go, okay, well, from a high level perspective, we can't use him just because his timeline doesn't line up with our construction timeline. So hiring subcontractors can be tricky in itself. You always want to have a couple in your pocket for each trade: plumbing, mechanical, electrical, framing, drywallers, painters, siders, roofers. There's so many guys out there, and that is a whole other conversation in itself of trying to identify good subcontractors, and that gets harder and harder. Um, the last one is collaborating with the architect to make sure the design is realized, and that basically means that it's pretty much done, right? Like the architect is a big portion of the whole design. Architect can make or break a project right out of Jump Street. Uh, while all these tasks begin before the construction starts, the GC will continue to manage the budget, work with an architect, and interact with additional contractors throughout the remainder of the project as well. And that pretty much sums it up. As far as the pre-construction phase goes, from a high level perspective, again, if you guys want to, dive really in deep into pre-construction or how hard it is to develop a construction budget, I can certainly go through that and share some examples uh, with everyone. Just from an information perspective, I'm not trying to hook anybody. I'm not saying this is the one all path to do it. This is just what I know, and I'm just sharing free information. So, all right, guys, as with everything, it takes a really long time, and I don't want to make these videos super, super long, without people being able to kind of go back and find something else. So, we've talked about what a general contractor is and pre-construction, and I realize after making, this pre-construction portion of this video that we really need to slow down a little bit. So I'm going to make another part coming up that talks about during construction and after construction. And I'm going to make a separate video later in the week, hopefully, about license requirements, state requirements, and all of the things that really kind of go into what is a general contractor, part 1, 2, and 3. So keep a lookout for those, and hopefully you guys found this video informative, and certainly please like and follow for more information, and I just hope that this helps people out. Thanks.